Joe Scarborough and Steve Rattner had to admit, live on air, that Joe Manchin is the savior of the Democrat Party. Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of The Dan Dawson Show. So, I was watching the Rubin report, and he posted something, so I actually took it from Dave Rubin, and I'm going to show it to you as a video. It's a video of Joe Scarborough and Steve Rattner admitting something I said months ago. Joe Manchin, Sinema are the saviors of the Democrat Party. Now, let's watch why that is, shall we?
Exactly what happens. And my God, I just wonder what would have happened if progressives had gotten their $6 trillion wish earlier this year.
Yeah, and in an ironic way, you almost have to thank Joe Manchin for blocking that, because $6.5 trillion of spending in this economy would make these numbers look small. Yeah, look, we had a huge budget deficit. We had an unbelievably aggressive reaction by the Fed to the pandemic. You can kind of understand why they were trying, but they just tried too hard. And now we're all going to pay the consequences in a very, very tough environment over the next year or two while this gets sorted out.
And by the way, I wouldn't even say ironically thank Joe Manchin. You can just thank Joe Manchin if you're glad that interest rates aren't even higher. For the life of me, I can't figure out why they keep doing this. Going to the press, setting false deadlines that are going to fail. This is pretty simple stuff. Let me say that again. This is pretty simple stuff. You get the head of the Progressive Caucus, you get Joe Manchin, and you get Joe Biden, and you put them in a room. And you say, we're not going to get out of this room until one of two things happen. One, we have a deal. Or two, we're going to have a press conference where we go out and announce that Joe Manchin does not support any piece of legislation regarding Build Back Better. Senator Manchin has said that he would support universal pre-K, full $1.75 trillion. That would be an extraordinary new entitlement for American families. If that's the case, you don't find that out by talking to reporters or setting deadlines. You get in the room, and not with 1,000 people. Get Manchin, get the head of the Progressive Caucus, get Joe Biden, sit at a table, and do it like you have done it, like every other business person has done it for years, and say, okay, let's make a deal, or let's just walk away from this. I mean, if you take Manchin at his word, he's already committed. He shook Biden's hand. He said, I'll give you $1.75 trillion. So you start by saying, Joe, show us your bill. Not what you might support. Show us your bill. And let's see where we go from there. And then walk out and make the announcement. We either have a bill or Joe Manchin will never support anything, and he's been lying to us for the past year and a half.
Ladies and gentlemen, so later on, Dave goes on to say that he supports people who usually get it wrong when they get it right. No. Here's where me and Dave greatly disagree. No, sorry, not in stuff like this. Now, if you get something wrong, and it's something meaningless, like, you've picked the Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl every year for the last 20 years. Or, your wife makes you try new food and you're like, I'm not going to like that. I don't want it. But turns out you like it. Hey, that's meaningless. But when you're dealing with people's lives, could you imagine if the economy was worse than it is now? If inflation was higher? When the AOCs and the Maxine Waters and the Nancy Pelosi's were running around sicking their dogs on Joe Manchin and Sinema. Remember the video of Joe Manchin, his car being surrounded in a parking garage, security having to come out to try to clear people off, people jumping on the hood of his car? Sinema could even go to a friend's child's wedding without being attacked. The wedding was attacked, with the mother of the bride coming out begging them to leave, and they wouldn't. They sicked their Antifa dogs on them Which also goes back to the Second Amendment. That's why they want to disarm you. So they can start sicking their dogs on you like they did a couple of years ago. See? The freaking Nazis. So no, what Joe Manchin and Christine Sinema did was an act of character. And I'm not going to give props to Joe Scarborough or anybody else because I haven't heard not one of these Nazi socialists come out and say Joe Manchin was right, Christine Sinema was right. No, they attack them on new stuff. Oh, they're not for gun control. See, they never stop. That's why, if you'll notice down here in South Texas, right here on the border, for the first time in 136 years, there's a district that elected a Republican to sit in Congress for them. She's Mexican born, lives in that border town. Even Elon Musk went on record saying he voted for her. The tides are returning. People are tired of this. They're seeing through it. When you start hurting people at the gas pump, when kids don't have formula for their babies, when you start hurting people at the grocery store, you can say anything you want to. You could talk about, nobody cares about gender pronouns. When you have the Department of Justice harassing parents for going to school because they don't want their kids being taught critical race theory, because they want their kids protected at school, not their 13-year-old daughters being raped in the bathroom by a repeat sex offender who identifies as a girl who's apparently not. They don't want that kind of stuff. They don't want pornography being shown to their kids. When you start hitting on those home fronts, you've lost. That's why you're going to have a red tsunami. So me and Dave can agree to disagree. I'm not applauding these people. I'm not going to give them any kind of props for anything. Hell, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Doesn't mean you stand up and clap your hands at noon and midnight. Screw that. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, just wanted to get out off my chest of something I disagree with Dave Rubin very much on. But like, subscribe, share, and as always, especially in these days and times, keep your powder dry, protect your Second Amendment rights, and do what you gotta do.